Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys a little bit of a different video today. I saw this article on Yahoo Sports. It's from the Indystar, and I kind of wanted to talk about it. It's about a 10-minute read, probably going to be closer to 20 or 30 minutes with my commentary included in it. I wanted to talk about this article and react to it. It's by Dustin Dopperack from the Indystar. I apologize if I got that name wrong. I have no idea who the fuck this dude is, but he's from the Indystar. And there's some things in this I agree with, some things I don't agree with, and I'll give my own opinions on these things as we go through the article, but I thought this would be fun. There's not a lot of Pacers content to go over now that we're not in the playoffs anymore. Most of the Pacers information and Pacer news we're going to get is going to come after the NBA Finals is over, so I wanted to go over this article, give my thoughts on it, but the article is called Insider, a Blueprint for a Successful Pacers Offseason, and I thought it'd be fun to read the article and just go over what I think while going through this. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So, Indianapolis. If the Pacers do a lot less moving and shaking in their 2024 offseason than they did in 2023, they'll be fine with that. Chad Buchanan said that himself, but yes, I have to agree. I think this team is only going to get better. Even though I'd love to see them take a major swing on a good 3-and-D wing player, a Paul George, an OG Anunoby, a DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan's not so much 3-and-D, but DeMar DeRozan would still solve a lot of our problems at that 3 position. And Mikal Bridges, I found out it's actually Mikal Bridges, okay? So, and that's on Basketball Reference. But I'd really like to see them take a swing on guys like that. Just it's going to be really hard for them to do that without giving up some significant guys. With Benedict Mathurin coming back in his 3rd year, Jarris Walker will hopefully get some more minutes in the NBA regular season this upcoming year. I don't see why he wouldn't. But I think even if they just run it back with what they got, they will be probably in the top 3 in the East this upcoming year, and I mean that. Like, they are that good at offense that they will probably be in at the very least in the top 5 in the East this upcoming year. And you know, if they can shore up that defense a little bit, I think they'll be going back to the Eastern Conference Finals, especially if Halliburton, Mathurin, and Jarris all take major steps defensively. There's some other stuff in here I'll talk about as well that pertains to that, but for now, that's what I'm going to go with. But let's get on. Indiana made a series of significant, Indiana made a series of significant moves. Oh, it should say moves. Starting with the drafting of Jarris Walker and running through the January acquisition of Pascal Siakam that turned them into a playoff team in 2023-2024. And they parlayed their number 6 seed into a spot in the Eastern Conference Finals before losing to the Celtics. Now, I will say this. I think that first of all, with Pascal Siakam, a lot of people I've seen some wild fucking takes on Pascal Siakam from Pacers fans. People saying stupid shit like they think Obi Toppin's better than Pascal Siakam. If we never traded for Pascal Siakam in January, we would have not been a playoff team, like a bona fide playoff team. We would have been a play-in team, hoping to get lucky and, you know, make our way as far as we did. Like, I truthfully believe if we were a play-in team, we wouldn't have gotten as far as we did. Chicago was giving us issues all year. Chicago plays us very well. And, you know, also, there was a lot of injuries, a little bit of luck, I think, in there as well. I do not expect the Pacers to make the Eastern Conference Finals again this upcoming year. I know there's going to be Pacers fans that are mad at me for having that opinion, and that's fine. But you have to understand that we overperformed. You know, like, this team is very good, don't get me wrong, but we kind of overperformed. And unless we find a way to get a 3rd star, or unless Benedict Mathurin just becomes the guy that we think he is, or, you know, hope he is also, unless Benedict Mathurin takes a significant leap forward this upcoming season, there's no way we end up back in the Eastern Conference Finals. Not unless we get another kind of like injury-riddled playoff run again. And even that, like, even then it was a little, you know, shaky. Even though I still think the Celtics will be the best team in the East next year. I do think this team, if they want to make it back to the Eastern Conference Finals, will have to make some significant improvements because of, Philadelphia is going to have a lot of cap space. We don't know what's going on with Cleveland, but I don't expect them to trade Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell. Even the Miami Heat, they're talking about Jimmy Butler. I do not expect them to trade Jimmy Butler. I think Milwaukee's, Dame and Giannis are going to have another year together. I think the East is going to be even harder this upcoming year for certain teams. So just keep that in mind, but let's continue. So this offseason, they will apparently be more focused on retaining players than adding new pieces. General Manager Chad Buchanan went so far in his postseason press conference to say that if the Pacers find themselves with the same roster they had this season, they'd be okay with that, which he did. That means much of their offseason to-do list is obvious, but there are still decisions to be made and at least some convincing to be done when it comes to keeping some players in the fold. What follows are steps in a blueprint for a successful offseason for the Pacers from a personnel standpoint. Obviously, individual development and schematic growth and adjustments are also important and necessary. The Pacers probably won't grab many headlines on a national level between now and October, but a few shrewd moves could maintain their roster health as they try to turn one playoff run into something more sustained. Agreed. They need to focus on just trying to grow with what they got at the moment. It'd be nice to get another piece, but their primary focus should be to just bring back Pascal Siakam. Try to develop the guys that they have, extend Andrew Nembhard, stuff like that. Work something out with TJ McConnell. Work something out maybe with Miles Turner. I would think you have to if you want to keep Pascal Siakam. But I think I have my own opinion on Pascal Siakam, but we'll get there when we get there. So let's continue. The first is re-sign Pascal Siakam. This, of course, is mission critical, and Pacers coach Rick Carlisle made that immediately clear in his postseason press conference by saying that the Pacers need to be the Pacers need to begin recruiting Siakam in earnest. I don't know. I'm fucking terrible with shit like this, but. I agree with that. Yes, the Pacers need to bring back Pascal Siakam. And when I say this, I mean this wholeheartedly. I don't give a fuck what anybody's opinion is on it. Okay? Pascal Siakam, if he gets 5 years, $245 million, it's an overpay. A drastic overpay. Pascal Siakam's very good. Taking up 30% of our salary cap space for him, I don't know how much I agree with that. It would be nice if he would take a lower contract offer so that way we could bring back Miles Turner and some of the guys that kind of made this team what it is, especially TJ McConnell, who's on an expiring deal next year. I can't guarantee that. If they re-sign Pascal Siakam to some absolutely fucking dog shit ridiculous contract, I understand why they're doing it. But Pascal Siakam, I have a feeling also Pascal Siakam might not get 5 years. I think maybe they'll do 3 or 4. 5 years would be, I don't know, like in 5 years he'll be 35. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how good he's gonna be at 35. But who knows? Players are playing up until their 40s. Pascal Siakam, it's like if you're gonna pay him $245 million, he better come out and average damn near 30 a game. That's all I'm saying. Like, at least in that ballpark, because, to pay $250 million over 5 years for a guy who's only averaging about 21, 22 points per game, that's a whole lot of bread to shell out for a guy that is only giving you that. Like, don't get me wrong, Siakam fits our scheme very good. He's a solid player. His post presence is fucking amazing. It adds a whole new dynamic to our offense. But the Pacers are walking a very thin line between, bringing Siakam back and overpaying him. And, there needs to be some wiggle room in there in the middle. And I think Siakam understands that as well. I think Siakam wants to be in Indiana. I just really hope they don't end up overpaying for him, because I know everybody's saying, oh, he's not going to take less money. He's not going to take less money. He's not going to take less money. Everybody keeps fucking saying that. But the fact of the matter is, okay, he wants to be in Indiana, apparently. At least that's what it seems like. And he really wants to play with Miles Turner. And I think if you can convince him to take less money to bring back Miles Turner, because we are going to need to bring back TJ McConnell and Miles Turner next year, I think if you can talk Pascal Siakam into that, hey, if you take this much money, we could bring back these guys and give you a chance at another ring. And I think that is maybe a little convincing to him, but you never know. He's already won a ring, so I don't know how much he cares about it, but I would assume he cares a little bit. But I don't know. That's neither here nor there. But let's continue. The Pacers went after Siakam in January because they needed another all-star caliber player to pair with their all-star point guard Tyrese Haliburton. Siakam responded by leading the Pacers in scoring in the half of the regular season, and then in the playoffs. He also led the Pacers in rebounding in the playoffs and proved that he can create for others, averaging 3.7 assists per game in the regular season and 3.8 in the playoffs. His championship experience was also clearly valuable, as he seemed to be the only member of the Pacers playing with a slow heartbeat in Game 1 for Game 1 of the first round series against the Bucks, and he maintained that posture for most of the postseason. Yes, that's the one thing I like about Pascal Siakam is he's been here before. He understands it. In Games 1 and 2 against the Bucks in that Bucks series, dude went fucking ballistic. I mean, I think he had like 36 and 37 points or something like that in those first 2 games. He was very good, and then after that, he was still really good, but, we never got another game like that out of Siakam. That's my issue I have with that, but there is some level of risk involved in offering the 30-year-old Siakam a 5-year max contract, which could pay him 30% of the salary cap, which I think I just went over. Obviously, he could start showing his age as he hits his mid-30s, and the Pacers wouldn't be able to easily move him. And with he and Haliburton both on max deals, they won't have much salary cap room. Still, they already have invested 3 first-round picks into acquiring him, along with Bruce Brown and Jordan Nwora. There are a few free agents of his caliber set to hit the market this summer, and the Pacers have generally struggled to succeed in that market anyway. Their best bet at having a second all-star caliber player is keeping the bird they have in hand. So offering whatever it takes to keep Siakam a 5-year, $245 million deal is still an obvious move. I don't know if it's an obvious move. I'm just going to say that. I understand that we've never won a championship. I understand that, when you get something good, you try to retain it, right? And Siakam is a very, very good player, right? But I think it's also important to keep in mind that we still have Jarris Walker. We still have Benedict Mathurin. Jalen Smith, we're probably getting rid of. And I understand that, Siakam is a all-star level player. But I just think, Tyrese Haliburton's only 23, and I understand also, not retaining Pascal Siakam could mean you really, really upset Tyrese Haliburton. But the thing is, 5 years, $245 million means that the Pacers would really have to go over the salary cap to bring back TJ McConnell and Miles Turner. It's a tough call, man. I really think it's a tough call. If they could, I'm not gonna lie, if they could talk Siakam into 180, 190, if he would take 150 or 160, it would be fucking phenomenal. I don't think it's going to happen, but if I hate this 5 year. I just hate overpaying for guys that we're talking about a guy who averages 22 points a game essentially most of the time in the regular season for 5 years, $245 million. That is a massive overpay. That's a Trae Young level contract overpay, and this dude doesn't even average 22, 24 points per game. You know what I'm saying? However, with that being said, he could get paired with Tyrese Haliburton and turn into a 30-point per game scorer. So I understand why they would do it. It's just I'm very weary of it. You know what I'm saying? I'm cautiously optimistic about it. Let's put it that way. I'm cautiously optimistic about signing Siakam to 5 years, $245 million. And honestly, the Pacers are usually pretty good at managing contracts. I'm assuming this contract's going to be front-loaded as well. I doubt they're going to pay him more money the older he gets. I think the most amount of money in this contract is going to come in that first year that he resigns with us, which would make sense. I'm not going to lie. If this contract isn't front-loaded, I don't know what the fuck the Pacers are doing. That seems to be the trend the league is going into, even with younger players. It's the older you get, we're going to pay you less, which makes a lot of sense from a just an athletic standpoint, players don't really get better as they get older. I mean, maybe young guys do, but guys 30 and plus usually don't. Like, they're usually on the decline of their careers at that point. But at least 32 and I would say at least 32 and beyond. Like, they like, that's about where their peak is. But I don't know. It's a tough call. I'm all for bringing Siakam back. Like, I won't be. Let's put it this way: if they signed Siakam to a 5-year, $245 million deal, I wouldn't be pissed. But at that point, you're between a rock and a hard place. Like, you're stuck with what you got, and you better hope Siakam is that 30-point per game scorer that you need next to Halliburton. If this does happen as well, I don't think Halliburton's going to be averaging 26 points a game to start his NBA season ever again. But Siakam, great player, and if we bring him back for 5 years, $245 million, I'm not mad. It's just I would not prefer it. You know what I'm saying? And I think they're gonna work something out. Also, like, I don't think he's getting $245 million. I understand he wants a max deal, but there is such thing as a max deal that's not almost $250 million. So I understand Jaylen Brown got $300 million. And that's part of the problem with this as well, is that the Boston Celtics gave Jaylen Brown a fucking ass ton of money. And he's a great player, but, at this point, I don't think there's a lot of players in the league that are worth $250 million. So let's move on. The next thing is set a limit with Obi Toppin. I completely agree with this. I wholeheartedly completely agree with this. But let's go ahead and read it, and then I'll give you my opinion. But Obi Toppin ended up just as good of a fit for the Pacers' high-paced offense as they hoped he would be. Getting them loads of easy buckets by beating his man down the floor for easy dunks and layups, he made 70.6% of his two-point shots in the regular season and 67.1% from the playoffs. And has the second most bench points in these playoffs behind teammate TJ McConnell. So it makes sense that the Pacers want to keep Toppin, and for Toppin to want to stay with the Pacers. However, Toppin's rookie scale contract is up, so he'll be a restricted free agent after making $6.8 million this season. The Pacers will have the opportunity to match any offer a team makes, but their best option will likely be to make a healthy but reasonable offer as soon as possible to get him on board and set a limit for how high they're willing to go. If the Pacers re-sign Siakam, they'll likely be at or close to the salary cap. They'll have some room for luxury tax apron before the luxury tax apron, but they still won't be able to afford a drastic overpay. An offer in the 10 to 15 million range makes sense, but it doesn't make sense for the Pacers to go much higher, and keep the extension at 2 to 3 years rather than going for 4 would probably also be wise. I completely agree with this. I've said this time and time again. I do not think that Obi Toppin is worth more than Aaron Nesmith. I would actually argue that he's worth probably the same thing as Aaron Nesmith. If you could get him for 4 years, $33 million, fucking take it all day, okay? But I agree, Obi Toppin is a 2 to 3 year player probably. He doesn't play defense at all, and that's the reason I don't like Obi Toppin. From a scoring standpoint, from an offensive standpoint, he's a great bench player. He pairs really well with TJ McConnell, as they stated. But he is a guy that I'm really weary of. He's very young, but I need to see something from him on defense. Like, if we're gonna re-sign him, like, I need to see something better out of him on defense this offseason. Like, I'm going to be honest, I don't like re-signing Obi Toppin simply because I think Jarris Walker should get more minutes this upcoming year, and I feel like bringing back Obi Toppin would take away minutes from Jarris Walker. Obi Toppin, good player, but I think Jarris Walker has the ability to be better than Obi Toppin as well, from what we've seen in the G League. So that's the only reason I don't like Obi Toppin, is he doesn't play defense, and it would take minutes away from Jarris Walker. And Jarris Walker's a guy who is actually, shows a lot of promise defensively, and he's a guy that I think if you just give him some opportunity could be even better than Obi Toppin. So I don't know, man. I don't know how to feel about it. I don't even really like the idea of signing him to $10 to $15 million a year. Like, Obi Toppin, we traded a second-round pick for him, and I understand we're trying to keep that bench unit intact, and they were a big part of that, but just the idea, I feel like we're going to get outbid on Obi Toppin by somebody. If the deal is worth more than $12 million a year, like if it's in the $10 to $15 million range, anything more than like 12 and a half a year, the Pacers are probably just going to let him walk. You still have Jarris Walker. Jarris Walker's a guy who's, been on the team all year. He'll go into training camp and stuff like that and get more experience playing with the team and stuff. Even down here, it says Pacers. Pacers face a tough decision at power forward with Obi Toppin and Jarris Walker. I feel like if you're the Pacers, like they say you have to set a limit with Obi Toppin, I completely agree. I 110% agree with that. Next is sign a shooter at a good price. I made a video actually talking about Malik Monk. And Malik Monk is a guy that I look at and I think would fit our system flawlessly, him or Buddy Hield if Buddy Hield wants to come back. Buddy Hield is not a good defender, but Malik Monk is younger than Buddy Hield, and he can do the same things that Buddy Hield can. Maybe not as good as Buddy Hield, but it's good enough. And we do need another shooter, regardless of what anybody thinks, regardless of what you think about Malik Monk or how much it's going to cost to get him. I think Malik Monk fits, I'm surprised he's not mentioned here, but Malik Monk would be fucking phenomenal, I think. So, let's get into it. The Pacers acquired Doug McDermott from the Spurs as part of a three-way trade that sent Buddy Hield to the 76ers in hopes that he'd be able to mitigate the loss of the three-point shooting that went out the door with Hield. That didn't work out nearly as well as they'd hoped, as McDermott hit 18 three-pointers in 18 games down the stretch, missing 10 with a calf strain. McDermott's 3-year, $41.25 million contract expires when the NBA calendar flips over, and it's hard to justify re-signing him at the same pay grade. Agreed. He's not a good defender. He's only good at shooting threes, really. It might make sense to consider how much salary is already committed elsewhere to re-sign Doug McDermott to a veteran minimum, a little over $3 million per year, if he would be willing. However, if the Pacers do have a roster opening for a free agent, they should prioritize shooting and perimeter defense. They obviously have a lot of players who can make shots, but they could use one like Hield, who can shoot off the dribble or off movement to make life a little easier on Halliburton, who seemed to struggle with the way the game changed for him once Hield was traded. I agree with that. Buddy Hield opened up the floor so much for Tyrese Halliburton because you had to fucking guard Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield wasn't going to be a world hurter on defense, but when it came to transition offense and shooting threes, Buddy Hield was the fucking perfect fit. And I understand that the Pacers had to trade him to get something for him. Buddy Hield is not going to get what he's expecting in free agency. I'm just going to tell you that now. And once he sees that, who knows? Maybe he'll want to come back to Indiana. But I think Malik Monk, if you can't get Buddy Hield, Malik Monk is a free agent. He's the guy that you should go after. And that's just my opinion. I'm setting my mark to that. I'm sticking to that. I don't give a fuck about any other shooter unless it is Paul George. You know what I'm saying? If you're going after a shooter, you need Malik Monk. That's what I think. Or if you want to trade for Kevin Huerter, which is probably not going to happen. So let's continue. There's a long list of accomplished shooters set to be on the free agent market this summer, including Klay Thompson, Gordon Hayward, and Hield himself. Gordon Hayward, I honestly think the Pacers could bring in Gordon Hayward on a vet minimum deal, and it would be phenomenal. If you could put him next to TJ McConnell and Obi Toppin, I think our bench would be even better. Klay Thompson, we're not going to get. Buddy Hield, we're probably not going to get. Through each of those players over 30, less costly options include Gary Trent Jr., Malik Beasley, and Gary Harris. Gary Harris, fuck no. Malik Beasley's another guy that could fit our scheme. Gary Trent Jr. is okay, but I don't know. Gary Trent Jr. just isn't the same guy defensively as he was a couple years ago. He's still a good player, but I think he's going to end up costing you more than a guy like Malik Monk would. I even think Malik Beasley would end up costing us more than obviously both Gary Harris and Gary Trent Jr. I'm not a fan really of any of those guys. Malik Beasley, he's okay. He killed us in the playoffs, but I don't know. Malik Beasley, Malik Monk, and Gary Trent Jr. is okay, but I'm not huge on Gary Trent Jr. Though even those players might command more than the Pacers are willing to spend, still if there's an addition to be made in free agency, that would be the area where it would make sense to look. Agreed. They need more shooting, and I think I've said it enough. Malik Monk, that's who I'm going for. Next is extend TJ McConnell's contract. Agree. Completely agree. He was the best bench point guard, backup point guard in the NBA this past season, and I think he has been for a while now. I can remember a couple years ago saying that I thought TJ McConnell was the best bench point guard in the league, and people thought I was fucking crazy for that. Everyone's like, oh, we need somebody better. I'm like, okay, well, who the fuck do you get? Alex Caruso? You know what I'm saying? And the Lakers at the time weren't going to trade him, and neither was Chicago. You know what I'm saying? I don't remember if he was on Chicago at that point, but I was like, any team that has Alex Caruso is not going to fucking trade him. outside of that, there's not much better you can get than TJ McConnell. You could go after Cameron Payne, who's okay, but TJ McConnell was a fucking dog. That's all I'm saying. TJ McConnell was a complete fucking dog, and he deserves everything he gets paid. But Buchanan has mentioned a desire to keep TJ McConnell on board so he can finish his career as a Pacer. If that's the case, the best bet for the Pacers is to lock the veteran point guard up now for as long as they can. He's set to become a free agent after the season, and his contract for this year doesn't become fully guaranteed until the day after the NBA draft, which he is definitely that contract is definitely going to be fully guaranteed. If they don't make TJ McConnell's contract fully guaranteed, okay, I'm sorry, but that's just a fucked up move after what he did for us this past season. The 32-year-old doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. He's coming off by far his best offensive season of his career, in which he averaged 20.3 points and 10 assists per 36 minutes, which is very good. A 20-point, 10 assist per 36 player is very, very good. He's incredibly well-conditioned, which means the Pacers' pace doesn't slow down at all when he subs into the game, and he's one of the Pacers' toughest on-ball defenders and overall toughest competitors. It makes sense for the Pacers to lock TJ McConnell up when they can because he will command high value on the open market when he hits free agency. Agreed. TJ McConnell, it's funny, everybody used to say TJ McConnell sucked at being as a defender and all this other stuff. Like 2 years ago, man, people were not this high on TJ McConnell. I'm just telling you right now, when he was 30, 31, nobody was this high on TJ McConnell. I thought he was a great player. We saw flashes of what he can be, but this year he really, really came into his own. And if they don't extend TJ McConnell, they don't go back to the playoffs. That's kind of how I view it. Next is extend Andrew Nembhard's contract. Agreed. Andrew Nembhard played out of his fucking mind in the playoffs. Once he got dug in, he was good. Andrew Nembhard was a second-round pick in 2022, has a different rookie scale contract structure than first-round picks with a club option for 2025-2026 before he becomes an unrestricted free agent. He's extension eligible a year earlier than the fellow draft class of 2022 member Benedict Mathurin, who would be a restricted free agent in 2026. If the Pacers can pull off a team-friendly contract extension, they'd be wise to try and pull it off now. Though it might not be advisable on Nembhard's part, he's due a little over $2 million in 2024-2025, which is obviously a bargain for the starter who takes on one of the toughest defensive assignments in every game. His scoring outburst in the playoffs when he averaged 14.9 points per game was a reminder that he has more offensive capacity than is often shows as a secondary ball handler next to Tyrese Halliburton. Agreed. I think nobody's going to refute that. It's possible the wisest thing Nembhard can do financially is pass up on any attempts at an extension offer and walk after 4 years to become someone else's starting point guard, which could be lucrative. So if the Pacers can possibly get him to agree to an extension similar to 3 years, $33 million deal Aaron Nesmith got, they'd be wise to jump on the opportunity. And Nembhard's eligible for approximately $80 million over 4 years. Agreed. If they could get, I'm going to be honest, if they could get Andrew Nembhard on an Aaron Nesmith level deal, 3 years, $33 million, that would be a fucking home run. We would have two of the best contracts in the NBA on our team. And between Aaron Nesmith and Andrew Nembhard, this team is hitting on young players, and Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith, they're not wrong, and Nembhard's eligible for approximately $80 million over 4 years, and if you let him hit the free agency market, he's gonna fucking get it, maybe even more. So if they could, bring him back for 3 years, $33 million, you do it all fucking day, all day. Andrew Nembhard was amazing in the playoffs. Next is draft experience in the second round. After picking in the top 9 in back-to-back seasons for the first time since 1988 and 1989, when they took Rick Smits and George McLeod, the Pacers don't have a first-round pick this year, having sent 2 2024 first-round picks and a 2026 first-round pick to the Raptors to acquire Siakam. At the moment, they hold picks number 36, 49, and 50 in this year's draft. They might try to deal one or more of those, but if they draft all 3, they'll likely be looking for just one of them to be a part of this year's roster, with others more likely to take two-way deals or be stowed overseas. Agree. I completely agree with that. So far, the Pacers seem to be prioritizing experience in the draft workouts of the 12 players who have come to Indianapolis for workouts so far. 11 were American college players, and all of them played at least 3 years of college basketball, with several playing 5 or more. That makes sense because whoever they draft likely won't start the season in the rotation but could get thrown into the fire because of injuries that are bound to take place over the course of an 82-game season. There's a guy, who is the guy who was killing shit for Oakland that the Pacers, I think is Jake, don't quote me on it, but Jake Locke or whatever his name is, Jake Locke I think his name was, the dude in the NCAA March Madness tournament, he played for Oakland, and he was just killing teams from three-point range. And you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone here, but I don't know how good he is defensively. I didn't see enough of him, but he was the guy that came out and was like, after his team got knocked out, was like, I'm not going to be an NBA player. He's like, I'm just like, basically just like, I'm just a future accountant essentially, and he's getting invited to NBA workouts. So I really, really like him if the Pacers take him, because they could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. They could draft a guy with experience and get a shooter like Jake, and it would be really, really good for them. Like, it would be a very, very nice pickup. They found last year the value of Ben Shepherd's 4 years at Belmont because they made it easy to plug him in and play him when Hield was traded and Mathurin was injured. The Pacers could use a 4th point guard or another wing in the system for injury purposes, and that's what they seem to be focused on getting. Yeah, agree with that. Keep James Johnson Jr., agreed. Honestly, even if they make James Johnson Jr. like an assistant coach or something, they should keep him on the team, because that after the Giannis situation with the ball and all that stuff, they brought in James Johnson the next fucking day, and James Johnson is a feared vet in the NBA. I mean, my man's got a professional MMA record, okay? Like, he's not a guy you want to fuck with. He's got a black belt and everything. So, yeah, I see why they want to bring back James Johnson to protect Tyrese Halliburton and all these other guys, because if you got to fuck with James Johnson, your day's not going to end up very good. You know what I'm saying? So let's read over this. The Pacers keep coming back to James Johnson Jr. as a veteran voice and someone who can serve as an, quote, enforcer without having to do much more than stand up off the bench and put himself in between teammates and aggressive foes. The 37-year-old has for the last 2 seasons been named into fight because of his martial arts background. And in the last 2 seasons, he hasn't even had to shove anybody to get his point across. He can draw technicals. The Pacers didn't bring Johnson back into the fold last year until December after visiting him in Miami. This year, it makes sense to commit to him out of the box. Last year was about competition in the preseason and allowing players to earn their spots. Now they're a little more established and the money is a little tighter, so they don't need to get a lot more talent to push the starters and second unit guys. It's hard to imagine having anyone more value in the number 15 spot on the roster than James Johnson. Agreed. I agree with most of this article. Like, James Johnson's a guy that I think they need to bring back. He's a good vet. The team clearly likes him. He's a badass. He's a martial arts background. Dude's a fucking black belt. So, I agree with most of this article. Like, some of it's really good. It's just, I don't agree with some of their suggestions. The Obi Toppin thing, I'm very 50-50 on. And even Pascal Siakam's contract, I'm like 50-50 on. It's like, if he would take less money, it would help us out a whole hell of a lot. So tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. A like helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more on the Fast Break Report. And I'm out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.